Welcome to SEXED, the SEXED channel. We're about to dive into the topic of puberty, and I just wanted to let you know I'm going to do 3 videos on this subject. One on female puberty, one on male puberty, and one on navigating the intricacies of trans puberty. Each of them is going to start with this same short section on general facts. It's a good idea to watch all 3 videos because having some information on how other people's bodies develop can give you insight into what's going on with your friends. If you do watch all 3, feel free to skip this opening repeat section. And if you don't watch all 3, then I'll know that you haven't missed anything significant by missing one of the other videos. Kid bodies come in all shapes and sizes. There are several charts that doctors use to plot childhood development. Basically, the farther from birth you get, the wider the spread is. Kids come in a wide variety of height, weight, and height to weight distribution, and none of that is based on sex. Essentially, until pubescence, the only visible difference between the sexes is their genitals. So, what is puberty? Puberty happens when your brain starts telling your internal sex organs, ovaries in females, testes in males, to make more sex hormones. That's not hormones for having sex. Sex hormones are just the different hormones that are produced in male and female bodies. And those sex hormones stimulate your libido, the growth and development of your brain, and the growth and development of your body. Any number of things can affect puberty, making it atypical, from differences in your brain to differences in your sex organs to environmental things that are affecting your development. Health and nutrition also play a huge role in how your body develops. Listen to your doctor's advice regarding your health, or if you're not fortunate enough to see a doctor regularly, at the very least, make sure that you're getting enough sleep and eating as well as you can. Puberty is a very stressful time for your body, and you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself properly. All right, the rest of this video is on puberty as it relates to cis girls and female non-binary folks specifically. The physical processes are also relevant for trans boys, and it's absolutely information you should have so that you can be prepared and make informed choices. We will be having another video about the intricacies of the trans process, however. On average, females begin puberty between 10 and 11 and end between 15 and 17 years of age. Precocious, or early puberty, is defined as beginning puberty at age 8 or earlier, and late onset puberty is defined as either no breast development by the age of 13 or no sign of your period by the time you're 16. So essentially, puberty can happen anywhere between the ages of 9 and 16, and that's totally normal. Unless puberty begins late due to some sort of illness, there are basically no negative ramifications for having late onset puberty. In fact, studies have shown that cis girls with late onset puberty sometimes have very positive psychological ramifications for that. Conversely, while there's no real physical downside to having an early onset puberty, those same studies showed that it can have a negative psychological effect. The sad fact is, there are a lot of societal pressures built up around being a woman, and the earlier your body begins to look like a woman, the earlier those pressures get applied to you. This can be terribly distressing for trans boys or for non-binary kids who are suddenly getting shoved into a box that they don't belong in, but it can also be really hard on cis girls. Where I grew up, the girls who went through early puberty had much older boyfriends, started having sex much sooner than everyone else, and in general were pressured to mature faster, all because of what their bodies looked like. If you go through early onset puberty, don't freak out. It doesn't mean that your life is going to be terrible. But if anything about it is distressing to you, reach out to someone. A parent, an older friend, a doctor, someone you can trust to listen to you and give you good counsel. Changes. Normally, the first change in female puberty is the start of breast development. All kids, regardless of sex, are flat-chested. The only exception to this is kids who are heavy enough that they have some fat deposits in their chest, but those aren't actually breasts. During puberty, female-bodied people grow boobs. And yeah, I just said boobs. I think it's a friendlier word than breast. I don't know. Plus, I like saying it. The breast is made up of fatty tissue which has mammary glands in it. The mammary glands will eventually produce milk solids if the female in question gives birth. The nipple is the erectile tissue at the tip of the breast, and the areola is the differently colored skin that surrounds the nipple. Boobs come in all different shapes and sizes. Nipples also come in all different shapes and sizes. And areola not only come in different shapes and sizes, but they also come in a huge variety of colors, from very, very dark to very, very pale. This is somewhat based on your skin tone, but not entirely. My point here is whatever boobs you happen to grow is just fine. I mean, if they're fluorescent green, you might want to get them checked by a doctor, but otherwise don't worry about it. Boobs take years to achieve their full adult state, but the first thing that you'll notice is that you've got a small lump under your areola that is often very tender to the touch. When that shows up, you're officially starting puberty. And while there are some complications with it, there are a lot of great things about having a mature body too, so congratulations. The next change that generally shows up a few months after breast development begins is the appearance of pubic hair. Now, in about 15% of the population, pubic hair actually shows up before the breast bud begins to develop, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean anything bad. It just doesn't happen that often. Like boobs, pubic hair develops gradually. It'll appear first around your labia, and then it'll spread outward. In some people, pubic hair is sparse and it tends to stay concentrated around the genitals. In some people, pubic hair is thicker and it spreads out down the legs and up over the lower belly. You'll also grow hair in your armpits, and that will differ from person to person as well. Like everything else having to do with the human body, how your body hair grows varies. You don't need shampoo or anything for your pubic hair. You can just wash it with soap. Culturally, a lot of different people do different things with their body hair. The only thing I'm going to say about that is make sure that you're making decisions that make you happy. You don't have to keep it and you don't have to get rid of it. It's entirely your call. After puberty begins, for roughly the next 2 years, your sex organs are going to go through a number of highly specific changes that are basically just preparing them for reproduction. The most notable ones are that your ovaries and uterus will grow larger, and your vagina will actually change color, texture, and it will start producing mucus. That sounds gross, doesn't it? It's not. Your vagina's not snotting. It's creating its own natural lubricant that also helps keep the pH in there balanced properly. Vaginas have sort of a very delicate ecosystem that has to be maintained or they get all out of whack. This is where yeast infections come from, and we don't like yeast infections. The mucus is our friend. The important thing here is that while vaginal discharge may seem a little odd at first, it's actually performing a very important role in keeping your vagina healthy. Washing it away with feminine hygiene products is actually really bad for you. As for your ovaries and uterus, you may notice during this time that you develop a little swell in your lower belly. Culturally, we have this thing about flat stomachs, but actually in most females, the uterus tips forward, which is why you get that swell in your lower belly. You go right ahead and do your stomach crunches. Having a strong core is fantastic. Just don't be upset if you don't ever get a completely flat stomach. Your body is just making space for your internal organs, and that's a good thing. Last but not least, your vagina will also begin to smell. There's nothing wrong with that. Vaginas smell like vaginas, and that's fine. There's a social stigma about it, but there really shouldn't be. It's a different smell than you find on a kid body or a male body, but it's not gross. Even if you decide that you personally don't care for it, please don't use any commercial products to try and mask it or get rid of it. The sprays and washes that are marketed to help with vaginal smell are not good for your body. There will also be visual changes to your entire vulva during puberty. Your clitoris will grow larger, the color of your vulva will darken, and your skin texture will change. Not only that, both sets of labia will grow. Your labia majora, the ones on the outside, were already larger. So generally the labia minora, the inner ones, actually grow more than the outer ones do during this time period. But both get larger. Vulvas end up with a huge amount of variation in them. Like areolas, they come in a wide variety of colors. Also, there's a wide range of clitoral sizes. Probably the thing that tends to surprise people the most is how different all the various labia are. In some females, the labia majora are much larger, which provides a sort of very smooth outer surface with a little slit down the middle. In many females, the labia minora are actually larger, which means you get a rounded edge and then the labia minora come up through the middle of that. Sometimes labia are uneven, some are smooth, whereas others have a more wavy or ruffled appearance. It's all fine. None of it affects the way your genitals function. Oh, and while you don't want to wash out your vagina, you absolutely do want to wash your vulva. Don't be scared of it. There are a lot of folds in there, so make sure you're getting them clean. Just keep the soap out of the vaginal canal. The major event of female puberty is when you have your first period. We'll discuss menstruation more when we talk about reproduction. But for right now, just know that your period is what happens when your uterus sheds its inner lining. That's why what comes out of your body isn't just blood. There is some blood, and there's also some clots, but there's also cells that are from the endometrium, which is the inner wall of your uterus. The average age for your first period is between 12 and 13, but anything between 8 and 16 is considered normal. If you're toward the beginning or the end of that range, don't worry about it. Your body runs on its own time schedule. You'll have a period when you're ready to have a period. There's a lot of cultural brouhaha around periods. The idea that you're maturing is often a very positive one, both among your peers and among your family. On the other hand, people are silly about periods, and there's a lot of social stigma built up around acknowledging that you ever actually have one. For that reason, a lot of young women that I know grew up really embarrassed anytime they had to buy pads or asked to be excused to go to the bathroom so they could change their pads, or the first time they bled through their pants. If I could wave a magic wand and make sure that no one with a female body was ever embarrassed by any of these things, I would. Since I can't, I just want to say, over half the population has had to buy pads. Every single one of those people has had to excuse themselves to go to the bathroom to change that pad. And I do not know a single solitary person with a period who has not bled through their outfit at least once. So, if you're ever feeling awkward about it, know that you're not alone. And that you can ask for aid from basically anyone with a uterus and they're gonna help. Over the years of puberty, your body changes shape. Your pelvis widens, which has the effect of spreading your hips out, and you start to retain fat in your breast and butt and hips and thighs. Some of us end up super curvy, and some of us end up with only a little curve. The important thing is that we need a certain percentage of body fat in order to maintain our menstrual cycle. That's why some elite female athletes that have really low body fat don't have periods. It's because their body doesn't have the energy it requires in order to maintain a normal reproductive cycle. So don't hate your fat. It's part of having a healthy female body. That's about it. There are some changes that are relevant to everyone, like acne and hormonal shifts that cause emotional shifts, and I'm going to deal with those in a separate video. This has been your brief tour of the sex-linked, female-specific puberty changes. Questions? Comments? Hit me up down below or on Twitter or Facebook. And until next time, keep educating yourself. Your clitoris will grow. Your clitoris will grow larger. Boobs. Your clitoris will grow larger. I said it and then I stopped. Boobs. It's like a tongue twister. Boo. I should probably stop doing that. It's not.